to Bedtime Buddies, the chillout podcast of relaxed chat and easy nonsense. Well, it's that time again. It's bedtime. I'm here with one of my closest bedtime buddies, a young man by the name of Owen, who I've known for quite some time. He's been very specific about how I set up this room to make it calming for him. But thank you for joining us for episode 2 of Bedtime Buddies. I'll let my guest introduce himself.
So this is a bit of an experience for me because I'm going to try and keep my voice in a nice, even tone for you guys at home trying to get to sleep. I'm somewhat known as the Devonshire Brian Blessed, so this is a challenge, but I'm trying to meet it head on. I've got my feet up, I'm sitting back in a kind of relaxed position. I've got a beautiful whiskey sour.
Oh yeah,
Matt's prepared for me.
We'll talk about that in a moment. Actually, one of the things when I initially set this podcast up, when I did this with Alex last week, we were set up in Eindhoven in the Netherlands, and we were just hanging out and having fun. I set this up in my kitchen, to which you said there's no way I'm going to be able to stay calm in your kitchen because the lights are ridiculous. You were a bit like Madonna in that respect, in that you insisted on getting in the lazy boy, turning all the lights off. So we sat in the dark with some scented candles and some mood lighting that I dragged out from under the stairs, and just chilling out. And I made you a whiskey sour, which I understand that you're enjoying.
Yeah,
it's a dead simple recipe. It's like a double bourbon, a single shot of pure lemon juice, a single shot of simple syrup, which is 1-to-1 sugar and water, and you shake it up for a bit, and then you get off the take all the ice out, and you just shake it up with egg white. I normally put some bitters in the egg white because it smells like a wet dog's arsehole, does egg white. But you said you're not a fan of bitters.
No, not particularly. I cannot remember now, and it's going to frustrate me. There's a drink, isn't it, that's quite popular in Italy, and it's kind of red and extremely bitter.
Campari.
Yes, you've nailed it.
Yeah.
And I remember I was in I can't remember now, somewhere in Italy, really hot.
Yeah.
And I was looking across like one of these bars, just sat on tables outside, and there was everyone seemed to be drinking this luscious, refreshing looking red drink that I just thought, that is going to taste amazing and beautiful. So I ordered it. I just, in my poor Italian, basically said, I'll have what he's having. And I ordered it, and as I sort of wet my lips to dive into this inviting looking beverage, it hit my tongue as if I'd gone full face into the devil's arsehole. Just absolutely bitter awfulness.
And you and I both know the taste of the devil's arsehole. It's something we are familiar with. But from a distance it looked lovely.
Yeah.
But up close in your gob,
not good at all. No.
I actually, exactly the opposite happened for me. The first time I ever drank beer, I think I was about 18 months old at the time, and maybe a bit older, but we were on holiday in Portugal, where it was as hot as the devil's arsehole, and I saw this wonderful, refreshing drink, which was a pint of beer, and I drank some of it. Was I 13, 14 at the time? I drank the beer, and it was just amazing. Changed my life forever. Out of my liver.
I'm not even a huge beer fan now. I'll drink it occasionally, but it's not my tip of choice. And I'm one of these people, whenever I go into a bar, I kind of struggle because for some, it's a bit like, how when you go to a cocktail party, for example, it's very difficult for a woman because she's got to find something to wear. It can't be what she's been seen wearing recently. It can't clash with someone else. It's got to be like the perfect thing. Whereas a guy can just throw on a a tuxedo.
Yeah.
And I feel I'm a bit like that. Like a guy who goes into a bar, I'll have a pint of best or whatever, and a pint of lager. And I'm like, oh, what have you got? What have you got? What ciders have you got? Have you got wine? I don't know. Nah, I don't think I'll drink wine in a bar. But maybe I could have and then you get the problem as well, because I'm a bit of a whiskey man.
Yeah.
So I'll be, 7 sort of double whiskies in when everyone else has had 7 pints. So yeah, it's problematic.
It is.
But this sour, actually, that you've made is reminiscent of a beer to me, because it's quite kind of subtle. It's not got a massive alcoholic punch. It's got the lovely sort of egg white head on it. So it's like a nice kind of pale amber.
It's got a beautiful
Belgian beer or something.
Yeah. It's got like a wit beer, or like a Weissen sort of thing. What I will say is I can money on the tables. I think I make probably the best whiskey sour you've ever had.
Okay, if you want to decide that.
I'm saying that right now. I make a whiskey. I put salt in this as well, I forgot to say. I put a pinch of salt in, and I generally use kosher salt because it's less salty. And just put a little, like half a pinch of salt in.
There's no bacon in it?
No, they're not fond of
shellfish?
That. No animals or part of animals mixed together. We're good with that. I think I make the best one you've ever had. I'm saying it. You know.
I mean, I'll give you that title. I like an amaretto sour myself.
Sure.
And what I tend to do with that is I don't put egg white in it.
No.
I'll put lemon and lime.
Okay.
And I do like a sort of my own sort of sugar syrup thing with it.
Yeah.
And I like it to be very punchy, it hits you with a sourness.
If you want, I'll step over there and give you a whack in the face and make it a bit punchy.
But what I found is brilliant with it is you get a really, not a whole shot, just a small addition of a very peaty whiskey. I had some vat strength Connemara, so you're using a small amount, it's like 65%, very smoky, and it just gives it this little smoky edge. And obviously because it's that little bit stronger, it gives it that bit more of a punch.
So whereas I like a gin or I like a Belgian beer, I forget you are a bit of a whiskey connoisseur. Am I right?
Yeah, I've normally got a single malt on the go.
They bought me, when I left my old job, they bought me a bottle of Talisker.
Oh, nice.
And I think it's quite an expensive bottle. And I'm not a whiskey fiend like yourself. But even I tested that and I thought that's pretty nice. Like to just sit and sip, that peaty taste is not a thing that I generally enjoy. Like I'm a bourbon man, I like rye bourbon, so that sweeter whiskey taste. And I have recently, whereas I'm happily drink Jack Daniels. In fact, once went on holiday to Vegas, and I bought a 2.5 litre bottle of Jim Beam for $25, and it came in like a little what do you call the special type of jars that they used to put.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The mason, not mason jars, but
like with a little,
the spout.
With the spout, and it had a little
moonshine
hoop,
sort of.
Yeah, like a hoop for your little finger.
Yeah.
It had one of those built into it. It's a beautiful bottle, and it was $25. And basically, me and my brother got loaded on that every night before we went out. It's bonkers. Have you been to Vegas?
No.
I went to Vegas with my friend. Like, do you believe in psychics?
I believe that there are people called psychics, but that's probably about as far as it goes.
So I don't either. I think it's a lot of shit.
Yeah.
But I went to Vegas for the first time. She said she'd seen it in a dream. So I'm cutting ahead here. I'm good with stories. I got off the aeroplane in Vegas. I walked onto the airport, and a woman approached me. She just came up to me. She put her hand on me and said, 18 and 25. Those are your numbers. And no explanation, no shaking of the hand. She put her hand on me and said 18 and 25. No word of a lie. These are your numbers.
Yeah.
She said she'd seen it then she said saw it in a dream. She left. So I went to the roulette table and I put $10 on 18 and it span in.
Wow.
Won $360.
Amazing.
And the second time I went to Vegas, this wasn't a dream, but it was more than likely a nightmare for my friend who fucking hated it. He had never been to Vegas, and he said, I don't know how to play roulette. And I said, don't worry, I'll show you the ropes. I said, put some money on 8. To which he put some money on 8. 33 black or whatever came in.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say 25.
25. 18 came in.
Yeah.
She was still there, the woman. And he said, what now? I said, you got to chase the number. You got to chase your luck. 8, go 8. So he kept putting money on 8. And I'm like, 8, put some money on 8. And he kept doing it. And then all his money went. And he said, I've got nothing left. What do I do? I'm like, go to the cash machine, get some money, put your money on 8. So he did it a bit more. And then he said, fuck you. If you want to put your money on 8, put your money on 8. So I put $20 on 8, and 8 came in.
Extraordinary.
I know, right? It won $720. Yeah. I used it to hire a Mustang to drive us to Chicago. We're at San Francisco. It was a lot of fun.
I've never really been to a casino. I've only ever been to a betting shop once, and that was with you and Alex.
Yes.
And because I have this innate fear of losing money, I just, I wouldn't say I'm tight, but like I haven't got money to lose, and I just feel like I'm unlucky. When it feels like I am not destined to win at gambling, and I think it must go back slightly to I was brought up as a Roman Catholic and then sort of as a kind of Protestant Christian, and obviously gambling is very like looked down upon, and I think that is still within me. It's like it's almost like the angel Gabriel has pointed to me and said, you will never be lucky in gambling. But I've always thought, with blackjack, I felt if you've got the money to do it, what you need to do is go in there and just keep doubling up.
You're going to win eventually.
Until you win. Do you know what I mean? So you lose $20, double up, so that you win that $20 back. So put down $40. You lose that, put down $80.
Yeah.
Lose that, put down $160. I mean, you've got to have that money in the first place.
I mean, a lot of casinos will stick a house limit on you to stop you doing that. They're not fake. Another time I went to Birmingham for a stag do, went to a casino, playing roulette again. They had 4 roulette tables, and this one Asian dude was like running between the 4 tables, betting on all 4 tables simultaneously. And like my understanding is specifically in China that there's a massive gambling culture within China, sort of Australia, China's.
They believe in sort of numerology a lot as well, don't they? They've like numbers have quite a significance to them, I think, as well.
Like the number 3 and stuff, isn't it? It's number 9 and number 3 or something. So he was betting like a motherfucker, running between these 4 tables, and I came in and put £2 on green 0, and it span in, and I won 72 quid. And then I took my winnings, but I left the initial £2 stake on green. And me and my mates were so busy celebrating, I forgot to get it. And she span it, and green span in again, and won another 72 quid.
Amazing.
I'm like, have I used up all my luck? Is that why I never, when I'm chatting people up, I never get lucky? It's just, you know how the angel Gabriel's pointing at you and saying you'll never be lucky. He's like, oh, you'll
never get lucky. Well, I just have to say, and I've told this story probably quite a few times, but just one of the funniest, best things I've ever seen you do was we were at an event once, and we were stood at the bar. You were literally leaning on the bar, and this young woman came up to get a drink, and she was very attractive. Yeah. And you said to her, "Oh, how are you?" And she said, "I'm fine." And you said, "Yes, you are." And she loved it. You didn't get anywhere, but like she was not like disgusted by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh man, I was out once with a bunch of people in Wakefield, and this girl came up to me and she said, my name's Claire, but my friends call me Buff. And I said, is it because you love a buffet? And she laughed, and I didn't get lucky either. But I think my capacity for the opportunity to tell what I think's a funny joke that is gonna almost certainly, much like a vessel that's about to fall into enemy hands, scuttle my chances. I will always take the opportunity to tell the joke. I can't help it. It's like
That's what I love about you.
That's not the ladies don't love it about me. But I often refer to it as my bad voice. And they're like, why did you do it? The bad voice told me to do it. And I would say, honestly, the more I've had to drink, the stronger the influence the bad voice has over me. Like, it gets to be goddamn ridiculous, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, this is a guy who is literally jumping on a table, doing a kind of ska dance to Nelly the Elephant in a gay bar.
Was that in Belgium?
Yeah.
That, you know, when we were in that bar in Belgium, the cafe where we were dancing on the table, there was like a guy, a tiny Russian man in a yellow vest who was trying to get together with me.
Yeah.
I climbed up onto a flying buttress to get away from him, an internal flying buttress, and then onto a shelf, and he followed me. he wasn't taking no for an answer.
To be fair, I don't think you were giving him the signals that you weren't interested. You were like, yeah, come on, grinding with him, you know.
Another nightmare whilst we're in the Nightmares and Dreams section of this podcast was when, having recently been to Essen again, to the Spielmesse, we went to a rock club in Essen called Chillout.
I know it well.
A wonderful place. And we went to this absolutely amazing karaoke evening called Karaoke Till Death. And it was basically karaoke, but instead of a machine, it was a full rock band. And basically, if you're a good singer, so you would have absolutely smashed it to pieces. But if, say, you're not a good singer, the rock band is carrying a lot of the heavy weight. One of the guys that was with us sung Gay Bar by Electric Six, and absolutely the crowd went bonkers. The lead singer for the band is there as well. So I think when you're not doing so great, they knock down your volume a bit and turn up his volume a bit. So everyone got to be a rock star for 3 minutes, and the atmosphere was like some of the best live music I've seen. I went to Glastonbury this year. I didn't see anything as entertaining at Glastonbury as I did.
Wow.
This thing. My brother said, "You're loving this." I said, "This is amazing." It was such a good time. But we were in Chillout a little while ago, and I was on that dance floor, and a small but wide and muscular bearded man approached me from behind and put his hands on my hips, started dancing with me in that way that says, "I want to have sex with you." And I said, "Owen, could you do me a favour? Could you tell this gentleman I'm touched, quite literally, I'm touched, but, you know, I'm not into guys. Thank you very much. And could you, without translating, could you say in German what you said to him?"
Oh, you want me to say it in German?
Yeah, please.
Oh, I forget now.
Give it a stab.
Mein Freund ist sehr interessant, aber ist ein bisschen peinlich, ja? Verstehen Sie?
Which translates to the way to my friend's heart is through
it wasn't
perseverance.
Yes, you're right. I did say that. Sorry. What I just said was my friend is very interested, but he is very shy.
Yeah.
So please understand.
All right.
But yeah, that is what I said. You're right.
What would that be in German?
Well, I
Give it a stab.
My German was a lot better then. What was it again? Tell me.
The way to my friend's heart is through perseverance.
I don't even know No, I've lost it
No
now.
worries.
My German was a bit more on form back then.
What was the first thing you said there? Can you say that again? The first thing you said.
Mein Freund ist sehr interessant, aber ist ein bisschen peinlich.
Nice. Thank you. Which basically means keep trying and you'll get there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, he's not gone away. He's still here. And I said to you, would you tell him again? And you said, absolutely, which you said the same thing to him. And eventually...
I said, just keep trying. Du musst probieren, ja? Sehr schwierig. And
in the
he
end,
was a really nice guy as well.
In the end, when he figured out, when we told him what had actually happened, he thought it was hilarious. So he was a really nice chap. And I said, look, you know, if I like dudes, I'd probably like you, but I don't. But sorry, you know, I don't want... I get hit on by a lot of guys when I go out. That's Angel Gabriel, that is. He's done this to me. Oh man, this whiskey sour is really good.
It's going down well. It's like milk.
Well, obviously we're still here, bedtime buddies, hanging out. And you look very chilled out in my lazy boy with your legs up, and does it put you in the mood?
Yes.
It is. I was wondering if you had any dreams or nightmares or things like that you'd like to talk about.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Probably not. You know, I've already insulted your whiskey sour to some extent, and now I'm going to insult your feature on your show. But one of the most inane things in life is when someone talks about their dreams. I find like as soon as someone says, "Oh, got to tell you about this dream," I'm like, you know, because I'm just like, it's like you're telling me about a really poorly written TV show that you saw, you know. But since you've invited me, I will do it.
Yeah. You know, speaking of nightmares, you are like a nightmare guest. You slag me off, you prick.
I don't really remember my dreams very often, but I had a repetitive nightmare when I was a kid. And my dad used to be a cleaner, and he used to clean the Mill on the Ex pub in Exeter.
Yes.
And it's a really large premises. And you know how in dreams you have familiar buildings, but they have floors or rooms bolted on that aren't there in real life.
Yeah.
So basically this pub had a cellar swimming pool in it, which did not exist in real life.
Yeah.
And it was full to the brim with zombies. And me and my parents would basically run around the pub in absolute terror, avoiding all these zombies until we hid in the bar behind the trophy cabinet.
Yes.
And the dream always ended, bearing in mind that this dream was probably when I was around, I don't know, 6 years old, which would have been like 1986, so it was a long time before Jurassic Park came out. But you know this scene where the T-Rex approaches and the water, you get the tremors in the glass of water. The dream always ended with this very large shadow coming over. You know those opaque doors you get in a pub with the name of the pub written on?
Yeah.
It had those. And you could see this giant looming shadow coming through the doors. And it would just be boom, boom. And I never saw it in the dream, but I know for a fact that the creature approached was a 50-foot garden mole in a white coat.
That's fucking hilarious. I don't know whether it's what the thing that I'm interested in, or for whatever reason I talked last week with Alex about how I dream about sharks quite a lot, even to this day, because I think they're amazing, but they also terrify the shit out of me. And often the shark from Jaws features in a lot of my nightmares. But I dream about zombies. I had a dream once where I was at my old house in Keighley, and I was down by the river, and this zombie was chasing me and my brother, and we just looked up, and it was the old man that we'd had run-ins with this old man, and he had turned into a zombie, and he was just stood watching us from the other side of the river, and he fell in the river, and we were like, well, he's gone. And then he crawled out of the river on our side of the embankment and started chasing us, but like walking slowly. But he was going slowly, and we couldn't climb up the embankment back to my house. There was a path there in real life, but the path was tangled with thorns and brush and things like that, and we couldn't get through. Eventually we got to the top of the hill, climbed back over the fence, and we could see him walking up the hill as well. And I was saying to my mum, quick, we've got to get in the house, the zombie's coming. And she was like, I'll just finish putting the washing out, and then I'll be right with you, like that, and just procrastinating. And he's now climbing over the fence. So the bit where you climbed over the fence was behind the garage, so he disappeared behind the garage, and I know he's going to be over the fence, and she's still fucking pegging out the washing with the washing clamp, like pegging out the washing. And then I think I woke up at that point, but it was fucking awful. Like,
oh, sorry, I missed that. I fell asleep. Talking about that. Just dozed off for a second. It's funny because what happens to me actually quite a lot is if I have a sex dream, something always happens to wake me up, as if the angel Gabriel himself is pointing at me and said, "No vinegar strokes in dreams for you." because it always at some crucial moment. And have you ever done that where you're having a dream so good and something wakes you up, and you're like, I just need. You try and get back to sleep to get back into the dream, but never happens, does it? No.
I think Louis C.K. Said when you're asleep, and he said, when you're in that real deep bit of your sleep, where you're floating in a river of molten chocolate, and the goddess of sleep is sucking your dick with 1,000 mouths and blowing liquid heroin down your cock, and you've never been more comfortable, and then your kids wake you up, Daddy, I need a poo, like this. He said there is no getting back to that. You're done. Once you're awake, you're awake. And I relate to that, and that's the same thing, right?
Yeah, I guess it's very similar.
There's a very interesting film called King of Kong. Yeah. Fistful of Quarters, King of Kong.
I've seen it, yeah.
And it's about the two dudes that are trying
Billy something is the antagonist.
Yeah. And they're trying to beat each other at Donkey Kong. And they're practicing, and there's such fucking shill behaviour from some of his goons. Like, the guy's trying to play at the arcade, and his mates are like, we've got him trying here, I don't think he's going to do it. And they're just trying to put him off.
Yeah.
And it's
psych him out.
I know, and there's one of the bits where he's at home playing Donkey Kong, and he gets to the kill screen nearly, and his little girl goes, Daddy, I need you to wipe my bum, I've had a poo. And I'm like, God damn it, kids. I mean, you've got kids and I don't, so I'm never going to have any, or at least I'm never going to tell the ones I have where I live. Fuck them, But there we go. Well, thank you, even though you detest doing it and you hate it with all your heart. Thank you for discussing your dreams with us. I'm going to move on now to that little section of my podcast I like to call Bedtime Routines, motherfuckers! Bedtime routines, things we do at bedtime, odd things that we do that maybe other people don't do, or things you think about when you're at bedtime, before you slip off into the land of Nod, when the Sandman's swinging on your eyelids and you're nearly asleep. You got any that pop to mind when I think?
I mean, I can take you through it. I don't know if it's that unique, but I tend to. First thing I do is I check that the back door's locked, because I live in a townhouse and my bedroom is at the top, so it's the second floor. Yeah. If I don't do that, then my girlfriend will say, "Did you check the back door's locked?" And I'll be like, "Oh, it's fine." And she'll be like, "Are you telling me that you didn't check it?" And I'll be like, "Well, yeah." And she'll then either guilt me into going to do it, or she'll go and do it. So I find that the easiest thing is to just do it before I go upstairs, kick off my Crocs, and brush my teeth. Then I usually go into the bedroom and think, "Oh, Jesus Christ, I've forgotten to fill up my water cup," which I always keep by the bed, so I'll go and fill that up. And then I have to have a fan on me while I sleep, and I have a podcast to listen to, much like this one.
Bedtime Buddies, the best podcast.
Well, I mean, I say much like this one. Often I don't, because the trouble is there's so many dickheads on podcasts who just randomly scream shit out, or you get an ad that comes through at 30 decibels higher than the rest of the podcast. So thank you so much for doing this, because I'll be putting this on. Because what you want is, you want a podcast that's kind of interesting enough to engage your brain, so that you don't think about all the horrendous things in life that are bothering you, but not so compelling to keep you awake listening to it. You want something that will just help you to drift off.
I'm hoping that everyone that's listening to this has fallen asleep already.
Yeah.
Because the beauty of this is, if you remember where you went to sleep, you just pick it up tomorrow night, listen to it again. So that's quite a... Would you recommend any then?
I often put on kind of like history podcasts, because they tend... I mean, I'm interested in history, but also they're not absolutely fascinating generally. So no. And they tend not to be too loud. They tend to be fairly. I pick particularly dull ones, that no one's going to start screaming. The only problem is it can be hard to find ones that are not with ads in the middle. That
for Betfair Casino or something like that. I remember, you're talking about loud noises. I remember you told me a story once where you had been asleep at your house and a friend had come over.
Oh, I think I know the one. Do you want me to?
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you want to save it for that? We're going to do bedtime stories in a bit, but maybe you do it now. Maybe.
Okay.
This is more like a waking up routine than a.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be. I have to obviously keep a low volume on this, but basically, I used to have a mate called Vince. He now lives in Canada, and we'd go out on the piss, and we'd always inevitably end the night where he would go to a kebab shop and order what they call the chicken fillet burger, and he'd normally eat 5, and I'd say,
whoa, 5 burgers? That's fucking loads of burgers.
And I go, you're never going to eat 5, and he go, I reckon I'm going to eat 5. So he would get his 5 chicken fillet burgers, I would get nothing. After he'd eaten 2.5 of them, I'd have one of the ones that was left.
Nice.
And then we'd, go to our respective beds. But one night he came to stay at my house, and I said to him, he had to get up early the next day to go to work or something. He was hardcore like that. I was off. So I said, look, I don't really want to get up as early as you do. So without wishing to be rude, if you want to get yourself up, help yourself to breakfast, and I'll see you later.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, that's fine, no problem at all. So he gets up in the morning. Now, unfortunately, what I didn't remember was many years before, when I was 18, I went to Holland, and for whatever reason there, I bought myself an air horn. And even though this was some years later, probably like 5 years after this, I'd always kept that air horn. In fact, I think I've still got it, and it's still got gas in it.
Oh, mate.
And so I got it when I was 18, and I'm 43 now. And he found this in the cupboard, and I was completely in a coma as the red horn crept its way into my room, and full blast after a heavy night out at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I was young then. I had a fairly sort of decent heart. I would have thought, I've not had any health issues on that front. I thought I was having a heart attack. It ripped me out of sleep with a ferocity I hitherto never experienced, and it was just like my heart was absolutely racing. He was like laughing his ass off, and I was just like, you absolute bastard. But it's not something I'd recommend. And
if you're trying to relax before bed, would you?
What I suggest you do is you whack on an air horn right at the end of this podcast, but make it significantly louder than the rest of the show.
When you told me this story the first time, I think you said you felt akin to the fact that maybe your soul had fallen off.
Yeah, it's just I've never experienced anything like it. Like, I remember one year I went to Australia, and I was in the East Coast, so down south, so in the kind of Melbourne sort of area, and it's actually pretty cold there in the winter, not Arctic, but it's chilly. And there was an outdoor swimming pool. And again, I think I was only about 18 years old, but I thought it'd be funny to jump into the swimming pool with all my clothes on. And I did, and the shock of hitting this water was insane. And I remember getting into a warm shower afterwards, just absolutely shivering, kind of trying to get warm again.
I relate to what you're saying. I've been sea swimming all year. This year it started in February, which is the coldest time of the year.
Oh, awful. Yeah,
I know. And when you speak to people that aren't in the know, they say things like, you must have had your wetsuit on, right? And I'm like, no, I'm not a girl, etc.
Yeah.
Because I'm like that. And I said, There was no wetsuit. Like, what did you have on? I'm like, I wear swimming pants. You know,
Swimming pants.
Right.
Is that what you call them?
Yeah. What do you call them?
Shorts or trunks?
Swimming pants.
Swimming
I had my
pants.
swimming pants on, and I
Speedos.
said I have wetsuit gloves because it's so cold your fingers stop working.
Yeah.
Wetsuit socks to keep your feet working, and sea shoes to stop the stones from destroying the sea socks.
Yeah.
So that and a pair of swimming pants. And I got in the water, and I was like, "Holy Jesus Christ, it is cold." And after like 5 or 10 minutes, like my muscles were locking up. I couldn't,
Yeah.
and they got out. But then I got out and I felt warm, strangely warm. And they were like, "Get dried, get dressed." I'm like, "No, it's warm." They're like, "No, get dried, get dressed." And only once you're dried and dressed, do you then start to shiver because
Yeah,
you're
it's
so
strange, isn't it?
cold.
I remember
cold for hours.
I went swimming in, I think it was like October, so it wasn't too bad, but it felt pretty cold. And when I got out of the sea, it felt like my skin was on fire.
Yeah, it's. I can show you some pictures. I look like Skeletor, like getting out of the water. At one point, a huge wave hit me when I was getting out. So one day we went in, and this was January, February, about April time, and it was hailstoning when we got in the sea, and it was wavy as fuck, and this massive wave smashed me up the beach, and I was in an awkward face down position. I looked like a manatee cadaver apparently, and a dog came over and licked my head, like it probably thought I was a dead thing that washed up on it. They said, "Are you getting back in?" To which I said, "Go fuck yourself." Like, it was so cold when I hit the stones on the beach, I didn't feel anything. I thought I could have just ripped my back up and I wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
It was fucking awful.
See, I don't mind the sea being cold. It's getting out of the sea and it being cold. Like I you know, because the weather is such that if you go in kind of like May, June, the water can be quite warm. Well, sorry, the water is not warm, but the weather outside is quite warm.
Sure, it takes the sea. The sea's warmest now.
So it's quite nice, you know, if you go in like August and it's blazing hot and the water's cold, it's really refreshing. And then when you get out, it's lovely to like dry in the sun.
It is.
But the idea of getting out in February, where it's just howling a gale and like bitter and frosty, it just does not appeal.
Your penis, it's that cold. Like, how did he die? Choked on his own testicles. They retracted that far.
Yeah, I know, it's not a good.
Oh,
it's not a good because it just completely retracts.
It's nothing to see. Was he exposing himself? No, there was nothing to see.
So it becomes like an acorn on top of a walnut.
Yeah, like a walnut whip poking out now. And then you go on holiday. I went on holiday with my mum and dad to Greece sailing, and I went in the Mediterranean. So getting in the ocean here in the southeast is like a traumatic, violent birth or something like that. It's just awful.
The sewage isn't great either.
Oh, you just keep your mouth shut. And then you go on holiday and you get in the Mediterranean, and it's a delight. It's non-tidal. There's no waves.
It's clear as anything.
It's clear as you like. It's warm. It's like getting in the bathwater. Now, here's the thing though. When I went in the sea, and as it got cooler in the afternoon, these 1.5 foot long caterpillars came out, like centipede-like things.
What, sea caterpillars?
On the bottom of the ocean, came out from between all the rocks. Like, fuck that.
What did they do? They just cut along the bottom, or did they actually swim?
No. They just this was in one of the harbours we were in. It was beautiful, but in between the rocks, like all the things that eat all the detritus on the bottom of the ocean, they just, as it got cooler in the afternoon, they just saw, and darker, they just started coming out, and they were just walking around on the ocean floor, like dozens of them, and you're like, fuck that.
Well, that's the thing. I think the sea in Britain, it kind of hides 1,000 sins, doesn't it?
It does. You don't know it's there.
No. Whereas, I mean, sometimes I kind of felt. I remember taking the kids out on one of these boat cruises in off the coast of Crete, and they were actually afraid of the water because it was so clear. Because we were actually at sea, it was really deep.
Yeah.
So it seemed a bit overwhelming for them, I think. But for me, I felt safer because I could see there was nothing. I mean, I could see fish, which is what worried them. But there was nothing to worry about, you know.
The problem is, I know and you know, the really big things in the ocean that are going to get us. It doesn't matter if you see them or not; they're still going to get you.
But not seeing them is.
I'd rather know they were not there.
Yeah, I like going. No, it's all right. There's nothing around here.
I mean, a great white shark can take a 300-pound seal without making a splash. So, see you later, dudes. So even you and I are not safe, you know.
Yeah.
And we talked about this last week, but in Greece once, I jumped off a cruise ship into the water, and as I swam around the ship, I looked under the water with my snorkel mask on, and I could see the anchor chain descending down into the depths until it disappeared completely, and that just utterly freaked me out.
Yeah, you sound like my kids were like that.
I went, oh God. When I went scuba diving off the Barrier Reef, and I just jumped in, and I look everywhere you looked, it goes on forever. It's overwhelming. Like it was mostly grey and dead, which is really upsetting, I guess. But it just went on forever, and I burnt through my hair really quickly because I was like, I was breathing very much like that. And I think I said this to Alex last week. I did a night dive in the dark, and my hair lasted. I was so zen and chill. It lasted forever.
Oh, right.
It's kind of weird. We kind of drifted away from the topic of bedtime routines to fucking foot-long caterpillars coming to get me on the ocean floor. But I think coming up to like the 45-minute mark, I think we're going to push on to the last segment of the podcast, which I like to call bedtime stories. And so we find ourselves now marching ever towards the deep, dark slumber that we all love so much. And I thought I'd tell you a few stories that are things I've seen. Like I find myself watching more and more things on YouTube and videos and things like that.
Yeah.
And one of the videos I've been watching, this guy who does a lot of stories, wartime stories. And he told me this story about... So I never knew this, but in the Second World War, Finland and Germany were allied for a time.
Right.
And there was one particular... There's this group, the soldiers that were on sort of the Finnish-Russian border, as it were skiing around, a lot of skiing and cross-country work. They would often give them packets of methamphetamine to take. Like, I understand they used to call cocaine like Russian marching powder because they used to give it to when they were tired. And did you ever watch SAS Rogue Heroes when it was on?
No.
One of the guys in that says, basically, before I go out on a mission, I take a ton of amphetamines, and then when I come back, I take a bunch of barbiturates to one to take him up and one to bring him back down.
I don't know that. I would like to watch that. Sounds good.
Yeah, and I guess like in the Second World War, around that time, everyone was super interested in super soldiers and combat drugs and things like that.
I think pilots used to take a lot of kind of amphetamines
to stay awake and things. And I think the soldiers were openly carrying and taking all kinds of pharmaceuticals. So these particular group of Finnish soldiers ran into a Russian patrol, and they were attacked. And he took basically they were trying to get away over really rough, snowy terrain, and they were struggling. And this one particular soldier decided he carried all the methamphetamine because he never took it, and so they trusted him not to go crazy on it. And he decided, facing death, he would take some of the methamphetamine. Unfortunately, due to the cold on the outside and the heat of his body, the methamphetamine had coagulated into one big lump, one chicken nugget-sized lump of meth. And effectively 30 pills or something like that had coagulated, so he couldn't break it off. So he just took the lot, and it happened. And I think he lost the patrol. They couldn't slow him down because he was on meth. And I think he went something like 70 miles over rough terrain. He skied over a landmine, blew his foot off, and carried on going. And he found a cabin, and it was cold, so he started a fire in the middle of the room. So in Finland, where they were, if you have a log cabin, you leave it unlocked in case a traveller is in need of it, because it's so cold out there. So you always keep wood ready to set a fire, and you always have it unlocked so people can get in, get shelter and stay. So he went in there and he started a fire, but he started it in the middle of the floor because he was off his face on meth, and burnt the whole cabin down, and then escaped. And then he ran in. He got to like a German forward base that had been left booby-trapped, blew himself up with that. He went about 20 feet through the air and landed. Got up after about, I don't know, a day or so, skied a bit more and eventually ran into another patrol. And they're like, Jesus Christ, what's happened to you? And even then, I think he'd been going about a week at this point. He had a resting heart rate of about 200 beats per minute and a foot missing. And he's just off his face on meth still.
Crazy.
And I heard this the other day and it blew my mind. The madness that happens in the Second World War. No, I thought I'd share that with you. You look like you're falling asleep.
I'm not. I'm just getting into the vibe, you know.
Oh man, I'll stretch out a little bit. You alright? Do you have a story you want to tell?
You put me on the spot now.
I'll tell you something that I did learn. This is somebody was telling me a story. When we were in Eindhoven, I had the saying, which is, you jag me up the cost, which means, you know, you're putting me on top of the cupboard, which is equivalent to driving me up the wall sort of thing. It's a Dutch saying.
Yeah.
I learned a German saying as well, which is, instead of saying, you know, you're skating on thin ice or this close, buddy, this close, they say you're shaking the slapping tree, which means like a giant slap is going to fall out of it and get you. And they say, I'm going to say this wrong, but they say, de schultes dun Schellenbaum, which is you're shaking the slapping tree.
Yeah, they also say, you know, we say he got out of the wrong side of bed this morning.
Yeah.
They say, because the word for get out of bed for them or get up is the same as stand up.
Okay.
So it's like aufstanden, which is to stand up. So they say he stood on the left leg.
Okay.
It means pretty much the same thing.
How does that translate?
It translates as he stood on the left leg.
What's it in the original?
I guess it would be auf dem linkes Bein standen auf or something like that.
That's nice.
It's the wrong grammar, but
I love your like I've always been super impressed that when we go away, how we went to your German. Obviously, you don't use it as much now, so you know. But when you did, it was great. And then when we went to that Italian restaurant in Essen, and you were just like coercing with the that sort of like rotund Italian waiter who was super lovely, super nice. That was always very impressive. I've always been impressed with that.
Yeah, it sort of comes, like if I'm actually there, it comes out a bit more. And also if I'm drunk, I'm a bit more confident with it. But, you know, I learned it when I was like, I did it at GCSE level, so I'm talking like from 11 till 16, and that's the only...
And then 20 years later, you used it in Essen.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, I kind of... It comes back to you, like, once you start using it, I think.
Is it getting your head into the mindset?
Yeah.
No, it's good.
I remember there's a good saying, I don't know what it is actually in Spanish, but I believe the Spaniards have a phrase, you know, we'd say like, oh, he's got a right monk on, or maybe even he got out of the wrong side of the bed in the morning. They say, who shat in your milk?
Do you say it like, who shat in your milk? It was me. I am. On another thing I saw, we were talking about going down the rabbit hole. When you go down the rabbit hole on the internet, on the YouTube, and you start churning videos, and it's a terrible habit. I hate that I do it. But
I do that. It's talking about bedtime routines, bringing it back.
Yeah.
I just mainline, you know, like Facebook video, basically TikTok videos.
Sure.
Just go through hundreds. Probably you could do it for hours. Well, one thing I did miss out of my bedtime routine actually is I have this phone, like mobile game called Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus.
Nice. I think I might be familiar with it.
Yeah, it's like many phone games in that I do not enjoy it at all.
No.
But it's addictive.
Yes.
And so it's just a constant grind. I never spend any money on it.
No.
But you have to grind to upgrade your characters and stuff, and then basically you get to a point where you can't do any of the missions because your characters can't defeat the enemies because they're too weak. So you just have to spend day after day like trying to upgrade them, but you only get so many like tokens and things. So basically I'm like, oh god, yeah, I've got to do my Tacticus up, like use up all my things, and
it becomes
like
a job.
It's
a grind and a job.
And I'm also in a guild, and the guild are like, they'll be like, oh, you haven't done any guild boss fights in a couple of days, come on, you know.
Well, there was a time when some of my pals were all playing and me as well, were playing World of Warcraft, and that became a grind, and I think at that point you're like, this isn't fun.
Yeah.
For me, the videos on YouTube that I watch before bed are almost certainly the ones I've recently started to love, which is ingrowing toenails being removed.
Yeah, it's funny, the videos that you obviously, like, the algorithm like gets to know the sort of things that you like to watch.
I know. Or like a horse with an abscess in its hoof, having that trimmed, and the explosion when they get through it. I'm just, there's something wrong with me. I'm sick. Why do I like this? But I like Dr. Pimple Popper. Like,
yeah,
I'm watching
my girlfriend watches just a lot of those.
Watching an abscess being drained.
Yeah, I don't get the fascination with that, really.
Is it because you're not a sick bastard?
I mean, I think I am.
You are a sick bastard.
But that's one particular fetish that I'm not into.
I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
Well, the one video, I'm going to end on this, but the one video that I saw today, which blew my mind, was a guy who went, two Australian comedians, and they went out to Central America, I think it was, and they flipped a coin. They went to this tribe that has a particular ritual that they like to do, like a coming of age sort of thing, and they basically get these like woven reeds and they weave them together so they look exactly like a fucking oven mitt, and they fill them full of bullet ants.
I've heard of this, yeah.
And then you put your hands in, and the bullet ant, in case you didn't know, has the most painful bite, and it makes you, the venom, the poison that they inject you with when they bite you, causes the highest amount of pain that you can feel as a human. And these fuckers can bite you several times a second, and you're putting on these oven mitts full of them, and this guy puts them on and they just bite the shit out of his hands, like dozens and dozens and dozens of them, and he's just rolling around on the floor screaming, and they're like, what do we do now? And they're like, get up and dance away the pain, is what the guy says. And the point is, it doesn't stop, so it triggers the pain, and the guy that I saw in the video, an hour later, he's still rolling around on the floor in agony. They're pouring cold water on his hands and it's doing nothing. And eventually the medic goes, shit, we better get you to hospital. Cut to him chilled out on a bed with a drip in his arm, and he says, the big white wasp stung me and I feel a lot better. And he's like, what big white wasp? It's the drip bag that's putting the morphine into him.
Yeah.
It's fucked up. And it's like 8 hours later, he can just about use his hands again. Fuck off. Why would you do that?
It's a ritual, isn't it?
It's a man ritual. It has been lovely to have you here on my podcast. Episode 2. And maybe in the future we'll bring you back and we'll do some more bedtime buddy related.
I'll start a dream journal for you.
Please do, because I know that you enjoy talking about your dreams and having other people's dreams talked to you. But for everyone else at home, thank you very much for tuning in, if you tuned in again. And if you fell asleep, listen to it tomorrow night and hear the ending. But otherwise, I'll see you all next time. Goodbye. Thank you for listening to episode 2 of Bedtime Buddies. And in the words of Walt Disney, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. Please join us next time for more ludicrous nonsense and adventures of the serenely digressional kind. Intro music provided by Pixabay and Lo-Fi Retro Girl. Full links and credits in the podcast description.